All right, let's dive in. Today, we're talking about a sound that, and I'm not exaggerating, literally lifted a country out of the Great Depression. It was a rhythm, a dance, a whole vibe that defined a generation and just set the world on fire. We are talking about the incredible story of swing. So think about this. Before there was Elvis, before Chuck Berry and the birth of rock and roll, there was another musical revolution that completely took over the youth of America. So what was it? You guessed it, it was swing. But you have to understand, this was so much more than just a genre of music. It was a whole cultural phenomenon. It totally reshaped how people moved, how they felt, and how they connected with each other. And to really get it, we've got to go back, way back, to the rhythm that started the whole thing. Okay, so our story really starts at the turn of the 20th century. And it begins with a musical idea that pretty much broke time apart. You see, before you could swing, you first had to rag. Now, at the heart of this new sound was this one concept, syncopation. Okay, so think of a steady beat, like a march. 1, 2, 3, 4. Super predictable, right? Well, syncopation just throws a wrench in that. It puts the punch, the accent, where you don't expect it, on the offbeats, in the spaces in between. That's why they called it ragtime. It literally felt like the rhythm was being ragged, or just torn to shreds. And this really shows you the difference. On one side, you've got that prim and proper music all neatly in its box, and on the other, you have ragtime, which was, intentionally messy. It was disobedient. And that rhythmic rebellion, that was the crucial first step. So that syncopated energy from ragtime, well, it didn't stay put for long. It kind of migrated down to New Orleans, picked up a few new tricks, and then just exploded into something way, way hotter. So what was in this new musical cocktail they were calling jazz? Well, you had the raw, gut-punch emotion of the blues. You had this thrilling sound of a bunch of instruments all talking over each other at once. And, super important, you had improvised solos where musicians could just cut loose and express themselves. And driving it all was this lopsided rhythm, the beat we now call swing. I mean, with music this hot and this wild, you couldn't just do the old, polite dances. It just wouldn't work. It demanded a whole new way to move. And the result? The Charleston. It was energetic, it was rebellious, and it became the absolute signature of the Roaring Twenties. And now we get to the main event. The stock market's crashed. The Roaring Twenties are over. America is deep in the Great Depression. The country was desperate for an escape, and they found it in the dance halls. This timeline really shows you just how fast the swing era rose and fell. It all kicks off in 1935. Bandleader Benny Goodman's orchestra plays this gig in Los Angeles, and it causes an absolute sensation. A national craze is born, literally overnight. The era peaks in the late 30s, but it gets cut short by World War II. After the war, things changed. These huge big bands were just too expensive, public tastes were shifting, and it really paved the way for rock and roll to come in and take over about a decade later. Now, during the swing era, there was this constant battle of the bands going on. On one side, you had sweet music. It was polite, it was predictable, it was played right off the sheet music. But on the other side, you had hot music. This was the stuff that was swinging, improvised, full of that bluesy feeling. And it was this hot jazz that really fueled the dance floors and defined the whole era. At the very heart of swing was this amazing paradox, relaxed excitement. Just picture Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. They're doing these incredibly athletic, super complex moves, right? But they look completely cool, casual, and in control. That effortless energy, that's the essence of both the music and the dance. All of this energy needed a home. It needed an epicenter, a place where the best musicians and the best dancers could come together and just push each other to new heights. That place was the Savoy Ballroom in Harlem, New York. This quote from the legendary dancer Norma Miller, it just paints such a perfect picture. Can you imagine being a kid, sitting on your fire escape and getting a free show every single night from the greatest dancers and musicians on the planet, their shadows just dancing on your wall? The influence of this place was just massive. The Savoy was legendary, and for good reason. It had a dance floor that was a whole city block long. 2 bandstands, so the music literally never stopped. And it had the famous Cat's Corner, where the absolute best dancers would battle it out and invent new moves on the spot. But what was truly revolutionary, game-changing, is that it was one of the very first public places in America where black and white people could dance together. In a deeply segregated country, the Savoy was this incredible beacon. And it was right there on that floor in Cat's Corner that the Charleston morphed into something new. It got faster, more athletic with these incredible high-flying aerial moves. They called it the Lindy Hop, and it became the definitive dance of the swing era. And you simply cannot talk about the Lindy Hop without talking about this man, Frankie Manning. He was one of its pioneers, one of its greatest innovators, and later in his life, its greatest ambassador, helping to bring the dance back for a whole new generation. If you want to understand his lifelong passion, you just need to know this one thing. Every single year, on his birthday, he would dance with a number of women equal to his age. And he kept that tradition going all the way up to his 94th birthday. 94! It's just an incredible testament to a life completely lived through dance. So even though the big bands eventually faded away and new music took over, the impact of swing, it never really went away. Its DNA is kind of baked into all the popular music that came after it. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that the music and the dance were completely inseparable. They were in this constant conversation with each other. The bands played hotter to make the dancers move more, and the dancers invented crazier moves that pushed the bands to play with even more energy. It was this perfect feedback loop, and it created a total cultural explosion. That spirit of swing, it directly fueled the birth of rock and roll. But it also leaves us with a pretty big question for today. In an era where, we mostly listen to music through headphones or we stand still and watch a band from far away, what happens to music when it's not being created in that direct conversation with the people who are moving to it? What might we have lost by separating the dance floor from the bandstand? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.